Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to today's Wild Rift video. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the bot lane tier list for patch 2.4b. Now, there's been a few changes here and there, especially in the support role. In terms of the AD carry, there's been one or two changes, but not really anything too crazy. But I'll go in depth with every single champion, talk about my thoughts and why I've put them in the tier that I have. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your thoughts on my tier list. But first thing first, let's talk about AD carry, and let's talk about Kai'Sa. Now, honestly, this tier list is a lot closer than what it actually seems in terms of tiers. Honestly, I could put Kai'Sa down here and put everyone in the S tier. Now, the reason why Kai'Sa is just a bit above the rest is because just of her solo carry potential and because of her power spikes. She can get her power spikes really quickly. Her first ability evolve, her third ability evolve, and then after that you just need to build a few items and you will be really strong. Her laning phase is okay, it's not the best, but you can stay back and you can farm pretty easily. It works with multiple supports as well, works with aggressive supports, also works well with enchanter supports, which are really strong at the moment, like Lulu and like Nami. But yeah, just overall the best and all-round best AD carry at the moment. But honestly, it's a bit closer. Now, let's go down to the S tier. And the first champion might be a bit of a surprise, but I finally caved in to Varus. Now, Varus is actually a lot stronger than what I thought. And honestly, probably has been the strongest, well, one of the strongest AD carries for a long time now. I just haven't really seen the carry potential in Varus, but now that I've played a few games and I've realized how impactful he can be and just how safe he can be as well and how much damage he does is absolutely insane. Now with Varus, he doesn't carry as much as these crit AD carries like Kai'Sa, Corki, Lucian and Xayah, but he just has a different sort of playstyle, and if it's, you know, the right sort of playstyle for you, he's definitely very good. He's very similar to Ezreal in a way, whereas they're both very safe AD carries and they're using their abilities more than auto attacks to deal damage. Now Varus ultimate is probably the most impactful in the entire game. If you use your ultimate, especially in a dragon fight, it can spread to multiple targets. You gain your blight stacks. You can probably use your first ability like maybe 3 times within 10 seconds, which could be really impactful and just deal a lot of damage. Now that's the reason he's moved up to the S tier. I could honestly put him in the S plus tier just with how strong he is at the moment. He's also very strong in competitive play as well. Just a very safe AD carry to play, especially in laning phase as well. If you are against an aggressive AD carry, you could just sit back, use your first ability, farm up, and just go for the, obviously, the Manamune lethality build. You can also go for the AP build as well, the on-hit AP build, if your team is full AD damage. But overall, still a great AD carry, and why he has moved up into the S tier. Now, Corki, still S tier at the moment. I was thinking of moving him down to the A tier, but I still think he's really strong. Now, obviously, with all these AD carries, with Corki, Lucian, and Xayah, the Solari Charge Blade got a nerf, but it still works great on all 3 champions, and that's why they're staying in the S tier. Now, obviously, with Solari Charge Blade, it went from true damage to magic damage, but the numbers went up. So overall, you're kind of dealing just a little bit less than the true damage, but the true damage just did scale well into late game, whereas the magic damage won't scale as well into late game, because most of the time the enemy champions will be building magic resist, or they have MR per level, which will go up as they rank up as well. So, but overall, Corki is still a great safe AD carry. Again, his package from his passive at the first dragon fight is really impactful, really nice ability to use. And also the extra damage that he can deal in the late game as well. He's a very scaling AD carry. He doesn't really come online until he has maybe 2 or 3 items. But once you get the Essence Reaver, the Solari Charge Blade, and the Infinity Edge, you can deal a lot of damage. Because with Corki, you'll be spamming your abilities a lot. So that means that Solari Charge Blade, you'll have the extra damage more often. Now, same with Lucian as well. Lucian, again, with Solari Charge Blade. Even though he got a nerf, it's still really strong on Lucian. You'll be using your, ability haste really well with all the ability combos. You'll be using the Solari Charge Blade damage as well, because you'll be activating your abilities a lot. And just overall, it's still a great item with Lucian. You still go for the same build with Lucian, Essence Reaver, Solari Charge Blade. and Infinity Edge. And to be fair, you do the same with Xayah as well. All three of these kind of have the same build path. But again, Lucian, very early aggressive champion that works really, really well with champions like Braum. Probably one of the best bot lane duos at the moment in the current meta. And yeah, can just play really aggressive with his passive. Could try and get that early advantage, and if you do get any early advantage, if you do get a few kills, then you could scale up and you could do a lot of damage in the mid and late game. Xayah, again, still S tier, one of my favourite champions at the moment. Xayah is a very difficult champion to master because you need to understand how her feathers work, and also you need to understand how to play against Xayah as well, because at the moment Xayah is just one of them champions that does do a lot of damage, but you can deal even more damage if you understand her playstyle and if you understand how to utilize her feathers in the correct way. Obviously, a very safe AD carry as well. Your ultimate can cancel out many things. Camille ultimate, Alistar combo, things like that. You can cancel that all out with the Xayah ultimate. And obviously, you can dodge out any sort of, you know, extra crowd control or channeling abilities or anything like that, really. You can dodge with Xayah ultimate. And obviously, after that as well, you can use your third ability to pull the feathers in to root them as well. So, overall, great champion with a lot of lane pressure again. Really, really safe champion to play as well, and just really, really strong. Ezreal. Now, Ezreal, I feel like Ezreal is still a great AD carry, don't get me wrong. Again, but he's quite hard to play because he focuses more on his abilities. And the thing is with Ezreal is you're going to be using your abilities a lot, especially your first ability. So if you don't hit your first ability, a lot, then he won't do as much damage as what you think. Now, obviously, a safe AD, very safe AD carry, could just farm up in lane, very similar to Varus with the mana immune. Just try and get to that Muramana passive, as soon as possible. I was trying to get my words out there for a second. But still, a very safe AD carry to play, very beginner-friendly AD carry to play as well, and can still do a lot of damage as well when you're sitting back and when you're poking down against all the champions. Moving on to A, B, and C tier now. So, again, these champions are very close together, except for maybe Ashe and Misfortune at the bottom. But for the A tier, we first have Draven. Draven is still a great AD carry to play. Very, very aggressive. One of the highest damage output AD carries in the early game. And for some people, it's very, very hard to deal with. If you can master Draven, he'll probably be S or even S plus tier. But the reason I put him in A tier is that he's a very, very hard champion to play. You need to make sure you understand how Draven works, his dropping axe mechanics, where he's going to drop his axe, when to go in, when to not go in, when to pick up your axe, when you're not to pick up your axe. You know, there's so many different things with Draven, because if you die early game with Draven, and if you lose your passive stacks, then you will be put really, really far behind. And the thing is with Draven is you need to kind of get an early lead with Draven. You need to make sure you get that early advantage and that you're able to, you know, scale into the mid and the late game. Again, Vayne as well. Obviously, Vayne got a pretty big hit with Solari Charge Blade. Now, the reason why Solari Charge Blade and Vayne worked really well is because you got bonus true damage on top of the true damage that she already has from her second ability. So it was just really, really strong. Now, obviously, it's magic damage now, but the damage is still really, really strong. Vayne is still really, really strong. That's why she hasn't really moved at the moment. Again, Vayne is one of the champions that struggles in the laning phase, but once you get them 3-4 items with Vayne, you can definitely 1v9. You go for the Blade Rune King, Solari Charge Blade, Wit's End, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge. Just go for like a lot of attack damage and a lot of crit, and you'll do a lot of damage with Vayne in terms of the mid and the late game. Moving on to Tristana. Now, Tristana is a great champion, does a lot of damage. Now, the reason why she's low on the tier list is because of how you need to play her. Now, the thing is with Vayne is, with Tristana, is that she benefits a lot from using her bomb from her third ability. Now, if you don't know, with Tristana with a third ability, you place a bomb on a target, and if you attack that same target multiple times, the bomb gets bigger and bigger. And the bigger the bomb gets, the more damage it does. And also, if you explode the bomb, if you reach it to the max stacks, and then the next auto attack will instantly explode, you won't have to wait until the time duration ends. You get a reset on your second ability. Now, at times, it's really, really hard to auto attack the same champion multiple times. You have to make sure you kind of use target priority all the time, but sometimes they might flash away, so you might walk up into, you know, distance of other champions and things like that. So it's quite hard to kind of work around Tristana and kind of work around, you know, how to play her and make sure you play her correctly. Obviously, sometimes when you jump in, you might put yourself in a difficult situation. But she can do a lot of damage as well, especially with her ultimate. Her damage scales are really, really high. And if you do get ahead with Tristana, you could definitely do a lot of damage. Obviously, has a lot of range as well and a lot of survivability with her jump. But it's just being able to master Tristana is why she's not in like the S or the S plus tier. Now, Jinx at the moment doesn't really benefit from any of the new crit items that went into the game from patch 2.4, and Jinx has kind of stayed the same at the moment. She just doesn't really work as well as, say, like Vayne or Corki, Lucian or Xayah. If you pair Lulu with any one of these, you know, new crit champions that work well with Solari Chargeblade, they could do a lot of damage. But with Jinx, she just doesn't really do as much as these champions. Now, she doesn't have a lot of laning pressure either. You can poke out a little bit with her rockets, but most of the time, she doesn't really have a lot of laning pressure. But with Jinx, and why she's still A tier and she's not in like B or C tier, is that if you do scale into the late game, and if you do have a Lulu by your side, and if you have your, you know, Infinity Edge, Ruthless Hurricane, Rapid Fire Cannon, you have that 75% crit chance, you will deal a lot of damage. And all you need is one kill to get that one reset, to get the passive, which will allow you to get a ton of movement speed, a ton of attack speed. You can win the whole game, for sure. But it's just getting to that point, which is the hard part about Jinx. Moving on down to the B tier. Now, the B tier hasn't really changed. Just to let you all know that the Senna I've put in B tier is for AD carry Senna. I don't think AD carry Senna is that good. I think fasting Senna is a lot better. So that's why Senna is down in the B tier. If it was fasting Senna, and if you play as a duo queue, it would probably be maybe A or S tier, one of these two, maybe just in between the A and the S tier. But just traditional AD carry farming Senna, not that great. Obviously, you don't have as many souls that drops. You just don't really do a lot of damage, I feel like. It's better to play Senna as a support or as a fasting AD carry. If you don't know what fasting AD carry means, it means that you have someone in the bot lane, like you've seen Nasa's Senna in the bot lane, maybe in competitive. Galio works really well. So what happens is the Galio or the Nasus takes the farm, and Senna is there just to poke out and just to collect souls. And then you build, like, you know, a little bit of armor penetration. You know, you slow them and things like that as well. So you're more of a utility AD carry than anything else when you're playing fasting. But obviously, traditional AD carry Senna goes for mana immune, goes with full damage, but just doesn't really, you know, doesn't really do that much damage. It doesn't really benefit a lot from farming. Now, Jhin, unfortunately, is still shit. Unfortunately, the champion is still bad. Obviously, Stormrazor did help him out quite a bit in terms of damage, in terms of the slow that you get from Stormrazor, but the damage output that Jhin does is just not as good as all these crit AD carries that are in the game at the moment. Obviously, Jhin, it's quite hard at the moment in terms of being able to kind of get to that point where you can carry the game, because early laning phase is not too bad with Jhin. You know, you can get a few kills early on. You do quite a lot of damage. But obviously, when you do release your full shot, you do get into a pretty bad position. So you need to be a little bit careful of that. But yeah, it's just getting to that point of the game where you can carry with Jhin. He just doesn't do as much damage output as the champions above. That's why I'm putting him there. Then the last two champions, Ashe and Misfortune. Ashe is honestly not that bad, but I'd much prefer Jhin and Senna over Ashe, to be fair. Actually, I don't even know. Senna I could even put down and then swap with Ashe. I don't know. These four are just all really, really bad, to be fair. Ashe just doesn't do any damage at all, unfortunately. Again, a very utility-based AD carry. Yeah, there's not really much else to say about Ashe, to be fair. Her laning phase is pretty decent. You can poke out champions with the volley ability, the second ability. And if you do play as a 5 or even as a duo, sometimes Ashe can work, because you can use your ultimate and you could communicate with your team. It's like, I'm using my ultimate now. The ultimate's going here. It's going to hit this champion. Go full in and go and engage with this champion. That's why Ashe, I don't feel like it is too bad for competitive. For competitive, I think it's a pretty good pick, but for solo queue and in this tier list, it's just not that good, because sometimes you can use your Ashe arrow and the rest of your team doesn't follow up, so you kind of waste your ultimate ability. And it's happened various times before with me, and yeah, just not really good champion overall. And Misfortune, I would say probably the worst champion at the moment in the game. Just hasn't really been able to pick up since the nerfs, which were, God, in patch 2.3, I think it was, when Miss Fortune was really strong. Maybe even patch 2.2. This is a few months ago now, where Miss Fortune was one of the best AD carries with Jin, and obviously Jin and Miss Fortune both got nerfed, and now they're both pretty in a bad spot at the moment, especially with Miss Fortune. Just doesn't really do a lot of damage, unfortunately. Obviously, most of the time at the moment, there is a place where there's a lot of assassins going around at the moment. Kha'Zix, Camille, Akali, all these champions that can dive really easy onto the backline. And Miss Fortune doesn't really, doesn't really do that much when someone jumps onto you at the backline. Doesn't really do a lot of damage because her passive, she wants to auto-attack different enemies at once. Her ultimate, she wants to stand still and do that big, massive teamfight damage. But there's so many champions that can cancel the ultimate, that can dive in on Miss Fortune and just pretty much one-shot her, which makes her pretty tough to play. Now, moving on to support tier list. Before that, I'm going to take a drink. Now, moving on to support tier list. Our support tier list has changed quite a bit. Now, honestly, this has been probably one of the best metas in terms of supports. I've seen so many different supports and everything at the moment. But it's still really like run over at the moment by these ardent supports. And by ardent supports, I mean Nami and Lulu. Both these champions are insanely strong at the moment, especially Lulu. Slowly coming back into the meta now because not really anyone can punish her in the laning phase. And with Lulu, you just want to make sure that you kind of survive the laning phase and you'll be completely fine. Now, Nami does beat Lulu in the laning phase. Nami can easily walk up, just deal a lot of damage to the Lulu, and obviously can heal herself at the same time as dealing damage. As I yawn. Excuse me. But first, let's talk about Nami. Now, Nami is this very aggressive laner that has a lot of crowd control to her and that can buff the ADC up a lot. Now, the reason why these ardent supports are strong at the moment is because of Staff of the Flowing Water. You get a lot of ability power now with Staff of the Flowing Water. You get the ability haste as well if you use an ability on an ally, and it's just insanely strong overall. Obviously, on top of that, you have Ardent Sensor, you have Harmonic Echo, all these strong enchanter support items at the moment that are in the game that are just insanely strong, which makes all these enchanters really strong. Now, Nami is really good in laning phase. You can buff up your ADC a lot. You can actually heal your ADC and deal damage to the enemy champions at the same time as well. Has a lot of peeling potential with her ultimate as well, and she can catch out multiple enemies with her bubble as well if you can land it. And if you land your bubble, it's quite a long CC duration, so you will deal quite a lot of damage if your ADC obviously follows up. Now, as I briefly mentioned, Lulu, again, there's not really a lot of champions that can really punish Lulu at the moment in the laning phase. She can just play really passive. She can shield up her ADC in laning phase. And once she gets to that point in the mid and the late game, once she gets Ardent Sensor, Staff of the Flowing Water, Harmonic Echo, she could just buff someone up and they could just 1v9 the game. Honestly, if, like I said, if you pair Lulu with like Jinx, with Lucian, Xayah, any one of these champions that could just be a late game carry, Vayne as well, Lulu is just completely unstoppable at the moment. Can I even say that word? Unstoppable at the moment. There you go. But yeah, Lulu in a pretty good spot at the moment, and definitely one I would highly recommend to pick up for sure. Obviously, it has the polymorph as well. That could be very good disengage control. Now, Janna's moved down to S tier. Now, the reason Janna's moved down to S tier is that she's not really one of them champions that can carry the game, if that makes sense. With Nami and Lulu, once you get to a certain point, you feel like you'll be able to carry the game. Obviously, Lulu with all her shields and her ultimate. Nami with her wave, with her bubble as well, with her high CC. With Janna, she's more of a disengaged champion. Now, it can work really well in some cases. Obviously, the enemy team might take a lot of assassins, so Janna might be a really good pick to try and disengage and try and peel for your AD carry. But she doesn't really have a lot of potential to be able to play aggressive in laning phase or to be able to, you know, carry them team fights. Now, the Tornado with Janna is quite good in laning phase, but most people highly predicts where the Janna Tornado is going to go now. I mean, once Janna walks into a bush, you know she's going to, you know, cast a Tornado. So you just walk back, and then you won't be hit by the Tornado at all. So, yeah. I still think Janna is still really good. Still really good, as I said, in certain situations, but just not as good as Nami and Lulu. Now, Thresh got a recent buff in the latest patch. I feel like Thresh is definitely going up in the tier list slowly but surely as people are starting to understand how to play him. His Lantern is one of the most insane abilities for being able to gank. Like, all you need to do is use your Lantern. Your jungler can honestly be hiding like somewhere in a bush or something. You throw out the Lantern to your jungler, you walk to the lane, you use your flay, you land a hook, and the jungler's there. The jungler is just basically teleported to you. One of the best ganking abilities in the entire game. Obviously, you have a lot of crowd control as well. Your hook is really good for laner phase. You can walk up and use your flay as well to proc your aftershock, which can deal a lot of damage. And you have a lot of healing potential as well with the box and with the flay as well. So just overall, all round, a great champion to pick. And honestly can carry a lot of games in solo queue if you understand how to play him correctly. And if you can land a hook and if you can use your lantern correctly, you will definitely carry in any single game. Moving on to Brom. Brom is still insanely broken. Keys will, you know, hit me with vibes with this as well. Brom is still insanely broken at the moment. One of them champions that if you do land a poke early on with your first ability, if you have a champion like Lucian, they can dash in, you can use the Brom shield to negate all the damage, and you could just get an easy Brom passive stack off, which still does a lot of damage, by the way. I don't know why they've nerfed pretty much everything else with Brom, but I think the Brom passive is the only thing they haven't nerfed yet, which is quite surprising because the passive is one of the main reasons why Brom is so strong. Obviously really good in team fights as well, has a really great engage or disengage tool with his ultimate, can block a lot of damage as I mentioned, can also jump to targets as well. Give them extra armor and magic resist, so you can jump onto the front line if they're in danger, or you can even jump back onto your AD carry to give them armor and magic resist, and it's just overall a great champion. Rakan is still very, very good, even better with Xayah. If Rakan is paired with Xayah, I would put him in the S+ tier, but obviously this is a solo carry tier list, solo queue tier list, so sometimes you might not have an AD carry that has Xayah. But Rakan is still a great support, obviously got buffed in the recent patch. His ultimate now has more movement speed, and his W now deals a little bit more damage, so it helps him a little bit in the laner phase, obviously, and team fights as well with the ultimate ability. But just one of them champions that has a lot of mobility. You can dash in, you can dash out again, you can heal, you've got your ultimate that can charm a bunch of people, and it's just one of them champions that's really, really hard to deal with, honestly, because sometimes Rakan dashes in, you might catch him out with a bit of CC, but after that CC is ended, he can just dash back out again to the allies and he'll just stay alive. So one of them very slippery champions that's really, really hard to deal with. And obviously, honestly, if you know how to play Rakan, you could be really, really strong. Senna support still really, really strong as well. Very, very hard to deal with in the laning phase. Has a lot of poke. The way you really counter Senna is that you kind of need to hard engage onto Senna. So play like Brom Lucian lane. Really, really good. Oh, yeah. So when Senna walks up and when Senna tries to get the soul stacks, you can stack the Brom passive. You can do a lot of damage. Senna really struggles in their little skirmishes because most of the time Senna just wants to sit back. She wants to auto attack, heal the allies, and also shield the allies as well, plus making them invisible. So yeah, still pretty good though. Still in a pretty good spot, but can be easily punished. A is very, very close. A and B are like insanely close. Honestly, Blitzcrank could live down here. I don't care about Blitzcrank. A and B are really close. Honestly, Lux can live down here sometimes. If Lux, if they play AP Lux, they can live down here. Support Lux probably lives up here, and probably Keys' Lux lives up here as well. But anyone else's Lux is just B tier. But anyway, moving on to A tier. Alistar, still really, really good. Can still get punished quite a bit in the laning phase, but can easily engage and can easily carry team fights. Really, really tanky, really, really strong. And yeah, just really good support overall. I'm going to quickly go through all of these because I'm already at 25 minutes in this tier list, so I'm going to quickly go through all these last champions. But if you have questions, let me know down in the comments. But yeah, Alistar still really, really strong, really, really tanky. Just not as strong as the champions above. Like Thresh does what Alistar does better in terms of hooks and everything. Same with Blitzcrank as well. Sonar, one of the champions that need to scale into the late game. Does really struggle a lot in the early laning phase, but once you do scale into the mid and the late game, you have that Service Embrace online. You can just spam all your abilities and basically carry the whole game. But still really, really good support champion to play. Seraphine has one of the best ultimates in the game. Really, really strong. can play really aggressive in the laning phase as well. A lot of poke, a lot of crowd control, and also has that big, massive AoE shielding and healing as well. That can be really, really beneficial for your team. Leona, great engage potential, can pretty much solo off one champion and can basically solo CC one champion. The only reason why she's not above the A tier is that Wild Rift is still in a meta at the moment where team fights are really important, and Leona is more for single target damage, to be fair. Like, not really a lot in terms of team fight. Excuse me, Leona's really good at just picking someone off and just making sure you basically burst that one target and then basically that person's dead. Galio's still pretty good support, to be fair. If you do build pet tank Galio, had a damaged Galio a few days ago on stream that just didn't do well. Wanted to take all my CS, was just trolling. Don't play this if you play Galio support. Just go for a tank Galio support build. Try and peel for your AD carry. Use your ultimate defensively. Make sure you use your ultimate to zone out. So make sure that your AD carry can sit there and start auto-attacking. Knock up, champions near your AD carry and peel for your AD carry. Play support Galio. Don't play this damage Galio as a support because it just won't work. And that just goes for the next champion as well. Don't play damage Lux as a support. The amount of people I've seen playing damage Lux as a support. Okay, you can maybe, if you use your first ability, catch out one champion and maybe kill one champion. But that's just once in a blue moon, It's much better to go for like a support Lux build. Go for that Harmonic Echo. Go for the Staff for the Flowing Water. That gives a lot of ability power, but it also helps your AD carry at the same time as well. Go for the Ardent Sensor. Give you extra attack speed. Give your AD carry extra attack speed, Galio and Lux are just one of them champions. I can honestly move them both down to B tier because people just play them damage. Like, people don't really play them as support, so it's just really, really hard. Now, Soraka, again, Soraka's kind of hard. Now, Soraka obviously got nerfed in patch 2.4b, but I still think Soraka can be really, really strong and can play very, very aggressive in lane phase, but she's very easy to counter. Honestly, with Soraka, all you need to do against her is build Oblivion Orb or Executioner's Calling, and then she pretty much becomes useless, because with Soraka, her main thing is healing. Healing with her ultimate, healing with her second ability. So, as I said, if you build Executioner's Calling and Oblivion Orb, if you reduce that healing, then it kind of becomes useless. So, yeah. That's why Soraka is down in B tier and not in A tier. And then Blitzcrank is just Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is just completely fucking useless. Like, you Blitzcrank, if you can land a hook, would be happy days. What else are you going to do? You're going to knock them up and maybe silence them. But that's about it. If you miss your hook, then you're the most useless champion the whole game. Honestly, I could probably put, like, any support would probably be better than Blitzcrank support, honestly. Who else? There's probably some champions here that can probably work better as a support than Blitzcrank. Probably Malphite support will work better than Blitzcrank, Who else? Probably even Teemo support, Give it a try. Hell's Devil did a video, Give it a try. Teemo support will probably be better than Blitzcrank. Honestly, Blitzcrank is just, I don't know. Just a complete useless champion at the moment. They've tried buffing him over and over again, but he just doesn't have anything to his kit that can benefit his team. You can, maybe carry and maybe pull that in, crucial target. And if you are good with Blitzcrank and if you can land them hooks, then, happy days. You can carry team fights. But most of the time, in solo queue, you won't be able to carry it with Blitzcrank. Now, that's enough of me talking. I've been talking for 28 minutes and my voice is starting to go and I've got a lot more work to do today. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this tier list. Hopefully you all enjoyed this in-depth tier list for patch 2.4b. Yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Let me know what you think. I think the meta at the moment is in a pretty good state. As you can see, a lot of S tier picks for AD carry, a lot of S tier and A tier picks for support. Yeah, there's just a lot of champions that you can carry on the moment, and the meta is in a pretty good state. And it's just really, fun to play at the moment. Just the only problem at the moment is just the matchmaking, which quite a lot of people have already spoke about, so I don't want to be too negative about matchmaking or anything. But in terms of meta, in terms of champions, there are a lot of champions you can play. There's a lot of champions you can carry on, so don't take this tier list lightly. But yeah, as always, thank you guys all for tuning in. I appreciate it. I will see you all very soon. Take care of yourselves. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.